Hello everyone. Over the last few days, Finance Minister has put out details of the economic revival blueprint. It's a mix of fiscal support, structural reforms and loan guarantees to help us understand the finer points of the 20 lakh crore Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Is the person who planned it, drafted it and also announced it. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is joining us live on CNN News 18 and CNBC Television 18. Thank you so much for your time here, ma'am. Your country's first finance minister who is facing a public health emergency which could have long-term economic repercussions. What was the nature of discussion that you had with the Prime Minister before you finalized the package, and what was his message for you?
Well, the first one was the one which was immediately after the lockdown was announced. That is the PM Garib Kalyan which we announced, in which some cash handouts were made to some sections, food was given and so on. That one, immediate one message from the Prime Minister was, you ensure that nobody goes hungry. You ensure that some money is in their hands so that the initial, shock and lockdown making it impossible for people to go out, they have some money in their hands. And of course to women, reach out with cooking gas and things, food grains and so on. So that was the first one. And so within a couple of hours after the announcement of the lockdown, we came up with PM Garib Kalyan. But subsequently, when the stimulus had to be given, when industries were all locked down, when people were told not to go out, nobody bought anything, so inventories were lying, production came to a halt, and small and medium businesses were not able to honor their EMI commitments and so on. So then it was a question of giving a comprehensive package which will be a stimulus for growth. So the consultation process was extensive, elaborate, long drawn at various different levels, and at that time when almost when it was ready for the announcement, the message was that we should be careful not to leave out the small businesses, careful not to bring pressure on anybody who are probably very close to insolvency. So make the legal and legislative supportive necessary action so that they are not dragged into kind of insolvency situation. Make sure that in this round we are not just going to be giving assistance of this kind, but India should be a different place for doing business. So reform in agriculture, reform for labor and so on were also brought in.
Ma'am, revival in demand is key for economic sustainability. What do you think that you have announced will actually ensure that there is immediate impact on that demand increase?
See, demand is not just when you or me go to the shop and buy our bare essentials, get food, get milk, get some household necessities and so on. Demand is also, this is also demand, but demand is also when small units have to pay some wages, pay the fixed costs, the company starts opening up and buys the raw material, starts the production, which means when they buy the raw material, it's demand. When also the payment is made to the wage earners, he's given some money in his hand. When he pays his electricity bill and after that commences production, demand is triggered. So we have taken that approach for triggering demand. I agree with you, demand is necessary for stimulating the economy's engine to move.
Will there be more announcements?
Well, no, nothing at the moment. I don't have anything more to announce.
After the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package, you took a lot of time, almost over a month before you finally came out and announced for the MSMEs in particular, ma'am.
And for agriculture.
For agriculture and various aspects of it. The critics are saying that this revival package or blueprint that you have unveiled actually skirts the primary question of demand, because if the MSMEs, if there is no demand, then how will they go ahead with the production?
Well, Maria, I must tell you, I've been asked this question several times in the last few days. I've heard so many people tell me that that is the one way in which you can stimulate the economy. Put money in the hands of the people directly and you will be there. We've heard it, and lots of people who are in the know of things, who are economists, who are observers, who are advisors to the PM, advisors to the ministry, have all applied their mind. And we think it's possible to generate demand by taking this route too. So I'm not commenting, I'm not denying any observation or advice people have given me saying you should have put money in the hands of the people directly rather than doing this. I'm not in argument with them. But matter of fact, after hearing all that, applying our mind, we've taken this route.
And why, ma'am? Why do you think that this is the right path for economy?
Because we think that this route creates a lot of cascading effect. It has a lot of cascading effect. It will create ripple effect in the economy. So it won't just be one person having money, and so money in hand being with several will create demand as one rasta. But through this, we think a lot of immediate businesses will start. Also demand will come because they are placing orders for raw material, they are placing orders for many other things, they are also ensuring that the wages is being given, so money in hand is going through that route. So this will have immediate trigger effect which the economy requires. That's our understanding.
I will talk a little more about money in hand, but that in the context of the migrants little later in this discussion, ma'am. Some state governments are saying that linking additional state borrowings with reforms is against the spirit of federalism. What will you be telling them?
If I had linked it with reforms, when I'm giving the money under devolution, yes, it will go against the constitutional federalism and its spirit. What is required by the Finance Commission for me to devolve from the revenues collected should go unconditionally, and I shall never touch that otherwise. I will keep devolving without any condition. I have no business there to put condition. But where am I putting the condition? And are they my conditions? They are conditions which the Finance Commission has discussed with the states. And where is it being put? When you are asking the central government to increase the cap for borrowing, and I'm saying yes, please, I'll remove the cap to a certain extent, but please go ahead doing some reforms. And what are the kind of reforms? One nation, one ration card. Now if equally all of us are talking about the migrant workers today, if only the one ration card had come in, the operability, interoperability, interstate operability of the ration card had come in, wouldn't they be obtaining their food grains from wherever they are? We didn't do that. And in this stimulus package, I've given 90,000 crores to the power sector for the discoms, because they are all now sitting with receivables but which are not being honored, which will mean that they can stop distributing power. And who will it affect? The farmers, for whom many state governments have given free electricity. I'm not getting into it. You want to give it free? Please do. But how will the discoms further continue to distribute if they are not getting their receivables? Some power sector reforms were even planned between 2014 and 19. The Uday scheme, for instance. But even after that, if I'm still giving money as a lifeline to the discoms, something is not done yet. So can we not do that? And who's that going to benefit? You, me, and the farmers. What is the hesitation? What is the hesitation of the states to do these reforms? Are they aimed at some big industrialists? They are aimed at common citizens, the poor, the needy, the ration-taking migrant worker, the farmer in the field. Why can't we reform? And why is the hesitation on this?
Then in that context only, there are two states which have gone in for massive labor reforms like Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. But there is also a petition that has been moved in the ILO by some labor unions which are of the opinion that these reforms are anti-poor and pro-industries. Are you of the opinion that these labor laws that are existing in India have actually held back several industries from investing in India?
Maria, I'm not talking about the states. I'm talking about the center for a minute. When labor codes have been introduced in the parliament, now it is still in the parliament. One probably is passed, 3 others are different stages of the standing committee. Committee is looking into it. Where Government of India had taken this extraordinary step of working together the Labour Minister sat hours on an end, and which is required. He had to do the consultations, spoke to so many different sections, and compressed the 44 labour laws into 4 codes. They are the ones which are in Parliament, and they are a product of extensive consultation, and they will have to be dealt with in the Parliament. And states have gone forward doing many things which are probably similar to the ones which are waiting in the Parliament, or probably gone a few steps ahead. So I can't comment on what the states are doing, but I can certainly tell you we are looking at labour reforms, and they are subject to parliamentary scrutiny.
Ma'am, critics are saying that this package ignored the plight of the migrants, because had there been direct money in the hands of the migrants, then they would have taken care of at a time when their issues of livelihoods had collapsed. Do you think
that's not true at all?
Then what really held you back from direct transfer of
You're
money?
going back to your own pet argument. You think that that's the only solution. You think if I paid every migrant labour some amount, all of you all will go back to home, to your respective homes, to say, ha, we demanded it from the centre, they gave it, and there we go, that's the solution. You may have that satisfaction if you want, but I'm sorry, my application of mind and the group of people who have all sat and discussed about it thought it better that if we did, using the disaster relief fund, which is both centre and state, we are able to take care of them wherever they are, as long as they should be there because of the lockdown. One, we are addressing their immediate pressing needs, taking care of the medical requirement, and also keeping them in a safe place. And the moment movements are allowed, they will be allowed to go wherever they want. That's how this whole thing started. And the states were the ones who effectively dealt with it at the ground level, saying, I'll keep them in different camps, in different districts, and make sure that, grains reach the place, food is cooked and served, medical attention is given, and so on. And therefore, it is the states which had better idea of how many people in wherever districts they are holding them, they are holding them. And when the extension of the lockdown started for the second time, when uncertainty crept in as to nobody knew when the lockdown would actually eventually be lifted, rightly, those migrants started feeling a bit of a fear, saying, what if I get affected by coronavirus? Or what if people in my village get affected, my family gets affected there? I'd rather. In fact, I've heard some of my own party activists who are working in the ground also say, some of them said, we'll go back to our village, irrespective of what might happen. So that fear started playing in them, and I will not for a moment fault them for it. It is a traumatic experience they have been going through, and when the centre and the state started arranging for trains, they by that time made up their mind, come what may, I have to go back to my village. So they started moving away. So these are things on which, I'm sorry to say, no one can be wiser. Everyone is watching this, and it's an emotional trauma, and all of us are equally responsible to reach out to them and do something in our own way, each one in a different way. I'm not saying you should do the way I'm doing or somebody else should do the way somebody else is doing. Each one of us has to do. But to start the political finger pointing and to play upon this emotion, and all of us being quite responsible and publicly seen people, can we make such emotionally charged allegations against one another? You want more trains? Take them.
You think opposition behaved irresponsibly?
They thought they were going to score a brownie point in it, but on the contrary, whether they earned the brownie or not, they have come off as being completely hypocritical in it. If they would spend this much time looking at their own states where they are in power, states where they are in power with alliance parties. I don't need to utter the names of the states. You know as to what is the halat in different states where Congress party is in rule. And look at the attention being given to non-Congress states.
Ma'am, do you think that because these are unusual times and unusual times call for perhaps a new model of interaction and communication between various states, is there absence of coordination between states as well?
Not at all. But look at the states where BJP is not in power, but where actually migrant issues are also being sorted out, both with the center and that state being together in sorting the problems out.
Ma'am, this is the labor force that is going back.
Sorry?
This is reverse migration that we are witnessing. You have started the economic activities. You have said that construction activities must begin. Factories have started opening. The question is, if this labor force goes back, how will you resume the work? Who will be there and work? Who will work in these factories?
That's right. That's also for states also to think now. So I'm glad these questions are being raised. It is now, I think, a responsibility of the center, the states, the local bodies, the urban local bodies, the panchayats, the municipalities, all of them have to now think as to, do they at least keep a data of who is coming in, because they contribute to that state's welfare, the state's economic well-being. Shouldn't they have an authentic database of who is coming from where, what kind of skill sets are they coming with, are they coming single or are they coming with their families? Some database should be maintained.
There is a huge force that is unaccounted for. Is that a matter of concern, ma'am?
Absolutely, it is. And I think one lesson we should all learn from this epidemic is that we owe it to the migrant workers to have a better set of information flow between the center and the states, with the employers and the states, with the employer and the labor departments in the states, about who's coming, how many are getting employed, where are they, how do they live, and which states do they come from, and so on.
Ma'am, the Indian government, your government, appealed to various sectors so that they don't retrench employees, but we are seeing that they're continuing to suffer. There have been massive cuts in salary and also job cuts. How is the government viewing these massive job losses?
Marya, again, it will sound as if I'm shifting the responsibility elsewhere. Labor departments in the states will also have to now plan to see, if they come back, what? If they don't come back, what? With the respective employees. Employers in the states will also have to talk. Employers and the state's labor departments, together with the state labor ministry department and the labor authorities, will have to now sit and talk among themselves to sort this out, rather than from the center, me giving one advisory saying, can you do this or can you do that? Let them do it for the states, because some states are disproportionately more dependent on labor, migrant labor.
Besides the migrant labor, even white collar jobs, we are seeing massive cuts. Will the government cut personal income tax to put some money in the hands of people?
I'm not sure at this stage we are not looking at any taxation related matters, direct or indirect. Indirect, of course, will have to be discussed at the GST Council, but direct, no, at this stage we are not looking at it at all, because with my revenue generation yet to be completely assessed as to how much of a hit that's going to take, I can't even think of saying what I can forego as yet. I'll have to first assess.
Ma'am, several predictions have been made about India's growth will fall because of this COVID-19 disruption. By when will you be able to make any kind of assessment of growth or degrowth for 2020, 2021?
Let the lockdown first get lifted. Then I'll have to see what is the number of firms and manufacturing units which are getting back, and to what capacity. Are they starting with 10%, 20%, 50% capacity? So any assessment can only commence after the lockdown is lifted fully.
But ma'am, there's no timeline for that.
That's right, and that is why there is just a lot of uncertainty. And even after it gets lifted, it's a question of when the pandemic is going to retreat. We don't know. No one knows when this is going to go away. Are we going to have to live with it in its full force, or is the force of the pandemic going to come down? There are very important questions which have to be answered.
Ma'am, was there a fear of downgrade by rating agencies that held you back on going ahead with fiscal stimulus?
Not at all, because we did analyze what the rating agency issue is going to be, and I did say it very clearly that there were times when India was alone in a certain circumstance, whilst everything else was normal in the rest of the world. Whereas here is a situation where, because of the pandemic, globally every country is affected, very badly hit. Economies are reeling under the pandemic. So can rating agencies look at India in a silo, or will they place India in the context of what is happening globally? So we applied our mind and thought we'll do what is important for India.
Ma'am, there seems to be riding tide of protectionism, very different from the idea of globalization that we knew till now. The Prime Minister has talked about how India could emerge at that destination where businesses are moving out of China. How are you looking at this turn, and are you seeing this as India's moment, an opportunity in crisis?
Well, if I'm looking at investments coming from abroad, irrespective of where it comes from, of course we've now ensured that, because if the valuations are going flat, companies can be bought in the cheap. We don't want companies to be bought in the cheap just because valuations are down, because we want investments to come in, and we don't want investments to come and take away Indian companies that easily. And that's why for certain countries around in our border, we've made sure some amendments have been made so that the flow is all observed, and we restrict the flow, particularly because we don't want countries and companies and investments coming in for those companies whose valuations have fallen badly. But with that said, I think the way in which I can attract investment, not just from one country, from any country, is if the ecosystem improves. It can't be that I want the money and therefore I can give just the tax related concessions, which is what I did in the corporate rate reduction of September 2019. So in order to improve the ecosystem, I think what is important is we have to make sure there is predictability of policy. There should be certainty. If we are bringing in a proposal for taxation, that should be predictable, and it cannot be in retrospective nature. It has to be progressive. It has got to be simplified. We also need very clearly an environment in which compliances are not going to be a burden. So many such things will have to be. That's why in the last 5 years, Prime Minister has been giving his attention for ease of doing business. And these are important for drawing investment, not just target certain companies and say you come and set a business here. We'll do that also if it is necessary. But the ground is certainty of policy, predictability, compliance burden being reduced, and not so regressive, not at all a regressive taxation.
Ma'am, last two questions. There was a lot of heightened expectation, particularly from some sectors such as aviation, tourism, hospitality, which also are big employers, that there would be some kind of relief or some kind of support that will come from the government. What will you be telling them?
Well, they will be getting relief, in the sense the existing package that has been announced also will be something which can reach out to them. I may not have named them as sectors, but obviously they all do businesses with some bank or the other. They can still approach banks, have this package also benefit them. That has not excluded them. I have not said everybody get benefit, but no, not this or this or that.
But there would be not any specific sector related announcement.
I have not given any sector related announcement, if you notice.
Yes.
I spoke about agriculture more from the point of view of reforms and making it all the more vibrant so that the farmers can access any market. So no sectors have been named. MSME covers so many, in fact a spectrum of sectors.
Last question to you. What has living and working through this crisis meant for you at a very personal level?
Nothing like never before. A lot of adjustments to be done. Elders at home. It's been a completely new thing on which every day I had to readjust my schedules, readjust the way in which we lived at home. So completely new ground.
And you think India is on track in this fight against COVID-19?
Absolutely. In fact, I would share probably through my Twitter as to how India has performed. And this is not gloating, saying, oh, we've done it all. But you compare India with, let us say, a set of countries who put together have the same population as India. The number of cases that there is in those countries, whose population together compares with our population, let's say 15 countries, I'll put it out this evening. 15 countries whose population together adds up to our population. The number of deaths in those countries and the number of deaths in India. The number of affected COVID patients in those countries and number of COVID patients in India. We are just one country, one government, one people, whereas here 15 countries all put together, 15 different governments, 15 different resources, our performance and their performance. I'm not saying we've done it all, we've succeeded and I'm sitting and watching with pride. No. But just to say, please let us look at India with a sense of fairness. The Prime Minister has led from the front, literally appealing to people, making sure that everyone, yes, unfortunately, because of the way in which this emotion and the stress and the trauma has played out, we are seeing a lot of things happening with the migrants. But then, number of cases being controlled, number of deaths being controlled, the medical services literally doing their maximum best. Prime Minister has definitely thanked them any number of times, makes all of us thank them. India has, all of us have, together all of us have handled this with great integrity and commitment.
Yes.
Let us not undermine our own by saying, oh no, nothing is happening there, look at this country, look at that. We look at every country, we learn from everybody. But please, we shouldn't be undermining India.
Yes. On that very, very positive note, Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18 and CNBC Television 18.
Thank you, Maria,
I appreciate your time, ma'am.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you so much for your time here. Thanks so much for watching. We are putting out all those details and the entire interview on news18.com.